I'm Mark Callahan, Mr. Saltwater Tank, coming to you on behalf of SaltwaterAquarium.com. There's some things in the saltwater tank hobby that are known to be true. For example, if you add more salt to your tank, the water's going to get saltier. Then there's some things that we've heard so many times we've just accepted them as true, whether they are or not. And here at SaltwaterAquarium.com, we're declaring shenanigans. And we're going to roll out our Reef Busters video series. We're going to take things that are accepted as true and put them to real-world tests. Now, I'm not talking about will LEDs grow corals or how much PAR is too much for your coral. I'm talking about things that are accepted as true where we can test them, get our hands dirty, break things, and potentially get injured as well. Disclaimer, don't try this at home. First up, the idea that you should not use a glass heater in your tank because glass can break. Now, I'm not going to deny that glass can break, but just how much abuse can a top-of-the-line glass heater take before it fails? That's what we're going to find out. Here's how this is going to work. I've got a 20-gallon tank with water in it. I've got the heater down at the bottom. This is just like a sump setup. Then we've got the skimmer, the return pump, and finally the rock if we even get to that point. I'm going to drop these various things down onto the heater and see if I can get it to break. And if all that won't work, I'm going to plug the heater in outside of the water, get it good and hot, and then drop it in the tank and see if that will break it. With that, I've got my protective eyewear on. Let's see if we can break this thing. First, a protein skimmer. Heaters are often in sumps, skimmers are often in sumps. So let's drop a skimmer on an Eheim heater and see what happens. After reviewing the footage, that looked pretty tame. The skimmer has a flat bottom which slows it down as it's falling to the water. That means the skimmer hit the heater without a lot of force. Victory to the heater at this point, and it hasn't seen much abuse yet. Next up, heavy return pump. Hope your camera's waterproof. The return pump has significantly more mass than the heater, and the heater didn't even blink an eye. It's taken all the abuse that I've thrown at it so far. All right, Mr. Heater, game on. The rock. When would you have rock in your sump? You probably wouldn't, but hey, we're trying to break this thing, and so far we've been unsuccessful in breaking this heater. So, let's hope it doesn't break the tank before it breaks the heater. Let's see that again in super slow motion. Heater 3, Mr. Saltwater Tank, none. Let's try this again. At this point, the heater has survived a skimmer, a return pump, and rock all being dropped on it. It's 100% intact, and it's still functioning. Okay, at this point, I'm not surprised that the glass heater survived the abuse. We dropped a skimmer on it, we dropped the return pump on it, we even dropped some rock on it. This thing is totally okay. So we gotta up the ante here. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna take the heater, I pulled it out of the tank, I'm gonna plug it in and let this thing get good and hot, and then drop it in the tank. The idea is that the hot glass will then be more brittle, and it should break when it hits the cold water. This water is about 68 degrees. So let's plug this thing in. For those of you concerned about my safety, don't worry, I'm gonna drop it and run. Kind of like light the fuse and get away, but a little different. All right, the heater's on. This thing's warming up. I'm gonna let this thing get good and hot, and then we're gonna drop it in. The heater's been out of the water for a couple minutes now. We can smell this thing burning. I'm starting to melt. There you go, look at that. I'm melting the framing of the tank from how hot this thing is. It's hot. All right, we're not shattered, but I'm noticing there's a hairline type of fracture here on the heater, but I don't see any fogging on the inside of the heater. I don't see any water in here. As far as I can tell, this thing is still operational. Let's leave this out of the water for 10 minutes and we'll chunk it back in there and see if we can make it fail. All right, we left the heater out of the water for 15 minutes now. It's hot. I'm gonna drop it back in the tank. Remember, it's already got a little hairline fracture here. I'm curious if this thing will crack more, or it'd be really cool if it's shattered, but after the abuse that this thing has already been through, I don't think it will. Let's see what we got. You ready, Jimmy?
Yep.
All right, heater's still on, by the way. That existing crack, same size. I don't see any other cracks with this thing. There's no fogging in the heater. I don't see any water in here. I think we're gonna have to resort to some desperate measures. Rock onto the heater, which is out of the tank on a table that doesn't give. Maybe this will break it. You ready, Jimmy? You know what? I'm not even gonna drop it. I'm gonna pound this thing. Here we go. We'll start gentle, just for sake of, drop. You ready? That worked! Finally, we break the heater. Let's see that again in super slow motion. Here's the thing, I had to smash the heater with this piece of rock. We dropped the rock on the tank, the heater in the tank, didn't break it, but now we have successfully broken the heater. Moral of the story, it takes a lot of effort, intentional effort, to break a glass heater in the tank. Am I okay with glass heaters in my tank and my clients' tanks? Yeah, I'm all right with it because they're never gonna go through that kind of thing. I've dropped the protein skimmer on, I dropped the return pump, even dropped rock in the tank. I dropped rock on it, I had to smash it a couple times before it broke. This thing survived all of that. I'm okay with this in a tank, and I'm okay with it in your tank. Of course, take care of them, mount them on heater mounts if you have them, use the suction cups that came with it. You look after these things, they should do just fine. I'm Mark Callan, Mr. Saltwater Tank, coming to you on behalf of SaltwaterAquarium.com. I'll catch you in the next episode.